Heyo everybody, Haku here with, I guess, kind of like a discussion on the Tower of God anime. I don't know whether to call this a review or not. It's not like a fully in-depth, detailed review, but it's kind of a review of the Tower of God anime as a whole. Now I'm going to go through and review every single episode, episode by episode. You're going to be seeing an episode 1 review, episode 2 review, etc. But I felt like if I just started posting those, I'd be getting a bunch of comments like, yeah, but what did you think about this thing later on, or this thing in general? So I just wanted to do a general series overview, kind of review discussion video for all of you. Now, if you are new to the channel, just clicking on this video, I have read the manhwa, but I'm gonna kind of be comparing things that happened in Season 1 to things that happened in the manhwa, but I'm not going to be talking about anything that happens after Season 1, so do not worry about spoilers. I'm not going to be doing any spoilers at all in this video, or any spoiler section, or anything like that at all. This is all just going to be Season 1 content. Now, at first, I was just going to talk completely extemporaneously, totally off the top of my head, but I was like, you know what, so I don't forget anything, let me take down at least a few bullet points. So I do have some notes with me here, just some bullet points to keep me on track so I don't forget any of the things that I wanted to talk about. But yeah, it's mostly just going to be my pure, unfiltered thoughts on it. So, I feel like my opinion on this is going to be really, really nuanced. There's some things about the anime that I really don't like, but there's some things that I absolutely love, some things I think they did better than in the source material. But in general, the response I've seen to it, I've seen a lot of anime onlys that have really, really liked it, but the response I've seen from manhwa readers has been like really overwhelmingly negative, in my opinion, kind of too negative. Like, some people act like the anime just came and killed their parents or their dog or something. They take it way, way too seriously. But yeah, I think there are really good things about it, really not good things about it. It's a mixed bag, in my opinion. I think the best way I ever described it was actually a couple weeks ago when I was talking to somebody, and I described it, and I've been using this same sort of phrase since then to describe it, because I was like, you know what? That actually works perfectly well to encapsulate my thoughts on it. But it's an above average anime that pales in comparison to the source material. That's my opinion on it. If you take the anime by itself, if you act like you haven't read the manhwa, it's above average. I'm not going to say it's like great, amazing, the best thing ever, but it's good. But if you compare it to the manhwa, though it's good, it is nowhere near as amazing as 10 out of 10, or at least 9 out of 10, that Season 1 in the manhwa is. So yeah, I think it's a good anime. It just doesn't really stand up to the source material, which is why people who've read the source material are really not going to like it. That and some of the changes are a little bit, like some of the changes, like I said before, I think are improvements, actually helped it out, and I'll discuss that a little bit later in the video. And some of them are just weird, and that's probably going to be my biggest criticism throughout this video, is that some of the changes they made to the anime were not really needed, and are weird, and it's like, why did you make this not good change if you really didn't need to change that? But yeah, either way, talking about the pacing really quick first though, because I know that's another point people are going to want to talk about. The pacing was always going to be what it was. I was saying that from before the anime even came around, that the pacing was not going to be ideal, because anime are just separated into cores. It was either going to be a 1-core series, 12 to 13 episodes, or a 2-core series, 24 to 26 episodes. And if it was 24 to 26 episodes, maybe that would have been better, but who knows? It might have been way too slow-paced. I think that's a very real possibility, and 12 to 13 are just not enough. Ideally, like 16 to 18 probably would have been the best to adapt this, but you just don't really get that kind of length. You don't get half cores like that in anime, at least not often. So the pacing was always going to be imperfect. But I actually thought the pacing wasn't bad. The pacing was much better than I expected. I was fearing the worst when it came to things just being absolutely rushed, but no, the pacing, I didn't really have a problem with the pacing at all for the most part. Like I said, most of my criticisms are actually just going to be in some things that they changed that I really didn't think needed to be changed. But when I start going through, I'm gonna like give a quick one sentence rundown of my thoughts on every episode. When I do that, I'm probably gonna talk more in specific about the changes I thought were improvements or the ones that were unneeded or not good. So I'll hold off on that for a second. One point I have here is to talk about the production. The production itself, the problem was in story, in changes and stuff. I have absolutely zero problem at all. In fact, I think the production was pretty near 10 out of 10. I thought the art style was great. I loved it. I loved the way it sort of paid so much respect to the manhwa's artwork in season 1. I loved the art style. I loved the animation. The animation looked great. The music was incredibly good. The OST was so great. And the voice acting was amazing too. All of that was amazing. Animation, art style, music, voice acting, all was amazing. As far as the opening and ending go, Stray Kids really killed it. The opening song and the ending song are both great. I love both of them. I just feel like the visuals, at first I really didn't mind. At first I was like, okay, I kind of like the visuals being just Bomb in the opening and just Rachel in the ending. But after the first couple episodes, I will admit that got kind of boring to the point where I was like, okay, yeah, maybe I just need to skip the opening and ending. Um, the songs were great the whole way through. It's just, I do kind of wish they would have shown off more of the cast and more of the characters and had a more dynamic opening and ending. But yeah, going on from there, some of the things that I actually have bullet points here, some of my big criticisms here before I get into the episode sort of summaries. Um, Levin being written out for, and I have in here a shitty Zorro reference. I think so. The character in the manhwa had a scar over his eye, and I guess just because of that, they were like, okay, let's make a Zorro reference. If that was a one-time background thing, I actually think that would have been a neat little reference. It's whatever. But to write out a whole other character, to keep this character around, to have a Zorro reference the entire time, it felt really cheesy and not good. And it's one of those things where you shouldn't want to refer too much to other stuff, because it's like you don't want to be the next Naruto or the next One Piece. You want to be the first whatever you are. You don't want to be the next something else. So I just felt like they really, really overdid it on the Zoro reference stuff, and writing out Levin's whole character for that, I wasn't a big fan of, but that's not a huge criticism. A massive one for me that really took the wind out of my sails in an episode that I loved up until that point is failing Hong Chunhwa for like no reason whatsoever in order to pass Dede Kancho and then proceed to kill Dede Kancho off and then have him randomly back alive again. That's one of those things, that and something in the first episode that I'll get to when I talk about the first episode, are things that even if I was an anime only, I would be like, okay, that was not good. So yeah, failing Chunhwa to pass Dede Kancho, I was definitely not a fan of, especially because we don't know if Chunhwa and Sunwoo Nare and stuff, they might not be important again in the future, but they might be important again in the future, so that's really not something you want to change like that. I'm not a fan of the Akryung changes, because again, that's something that really hurts the future of the series, and really didn't need to be changed. It really didn't add anything by changing Akryung's role, or anything about him. Oh, and Akryung is Ghost. I know some people know him as Ghost. The gold Shinsu stuff wasn't good. Having the Shinsu that Bomb uses in episode 5, I think it is, yeah. Having that be gold really does not make sense, because, I mean, if you argue that it's the Black March doing that, the Black March's Shinsu should be black, you know? And Shinsu color, other than the sort of default blue, actually is kind of important and kind of a neat thing in the lore of the series. So just throwing out gold Shinsu for Bomb, making it seem big and impressive, really isn't cool, especially when the Shinsu use was a lot more muted, a lot more small in its scale in season 1, and I think that helped a lot. We need to build up to this big stuff, and I think just jumping to giant, especially when like Bomb fought the bull, big Gatling gun Shinsu explosion powers, it's a little bit too much. It's a little bit too big for here at the beginning of the series and doesn't really fit the lore of the series and how Shinsu is supposed to work. Now, this is one that I'm a little on the fence about, removing Andrasi or Endorsi development in order to develop Rachel further. They took some scenes away from Endorsi and gave them to Rachel, and just generally left out a lot of stuff with Endorsi. I don't like that they left that stuff out because I think it's important for her character and it's important to the future of the series, but I do like that they developed Rachel further and gave her more scenes with Bomb. So that's a little bit of a one that I'm on the fence about. I like that they added more Rachel development, but I'm not a fan that it was at the expense of Endorsi development. They're also missing some important content here and there. Most of it, again, that they left out I think is okay, but some of the stuff that they left out I think isn't good because they left out some of the biggest, most important lines or most important character moments in season 1, which isn't cool. Like one of the biggest scenes that gets referenced even by fans to this day from season 1 all the time is Rack yelling, "A game without me is a game not worth winning." That is one of the most iconic scenes in the entire series, and they completely left out one of the most iconic scenes in the entire series. The same thing with them mega abridging when Kun talks about his backstory to Rack. They pretty much left almost all that scene out. And Rack being obsessed with bananas instead of chocolate bars, having the line, "What I think you lost is your banana." Like, all of that is really, really important to the characters, and the anime kind of misses the point by leaving some of that stuff out. Now just to run through every episode real quick, and then at the end, since I put all of my big criticisms here, after I run through the episodes one by one really quick, just very shortly, since I'm going to be doing full detailed reviews on each of them, I'm going to have my biggest praise for the anime at the end. But yeah, episode 1, I thought the first half of it, first half-ish, the pacing was really messy. It was like they repeated some things, and I don't like when we have flashbacks to things that happened in an episode, 5 minutes after that thing happened. It just felt like there were things left out of this episode that they didn't have to leave out, because they could have just paced the first half of this episode better. It was just kind of messy and awkward and weird, and one thing that I mentioned earlier in the video that even if I was an anime only I would have complained about is we don't get any sort of establishing shot of Yuri or explanation of why she's there like we do in the manhwa, and even if I hadn't read the manhwa I'd be like, who is she? Why did she completely come out of nowhere? It doesn't really make much sense. But that's the first half of the episode. The second half, everything after Bomb gets the Black March, I thought was great. I thought everything after Bomb getting the Black March in episode 1 was really great. Episode 2 was a really, really good episode. I think the changes made there totally improve upon what the manhwa had. Because in the manhwa, Rack is just kind of yelling, come out turtles, while Kun and Bomb hide behind a rock, hide behind a rock, just talking about things. But I like that instead we have Kun trick Rack into running off trying to chase them somewhere, so this way it doesn't seem like he's an idiot just yelling for them to come out. Instead he actually goes and he gets to be cool and take out some other opponents and random fodder enemies while Bomb and Kun talk behind this rock, and it seems a lot less awkward, so I actually love the way that they changed that around a lot. Also, the way that they changed it around, we got to see just glimpses of a lot of other characters like Waryun, and just some of the random ones Liran 3 or Chun Chun, or just random characters like that. We got to see them in this 500 down to 200 or something like that. We got to see them in that test, which I thought was really cool, and I thought this episode improved upon the manhwa. Episode 3, again, I really, really liked the presentation they chose with Kun's character specifically. I think that it was really, really cool the way they did his backstory and everything, and I loved episode 3 again. Episode 4, awesome. Episode 4 was one of the best. Really well adapted. One thing that was sort of end of episode 4, beginning of episode 5, I think, that I really liked was they changed around. I believe it's the third round of the crown game. They changed it around, and the way that they changed it around, I think, made Rack seem stronger. It made Kun seem smarter. It added a lot that was already there with Shibisu and the manhwa of making Shibisu seem smart. I think that changing around the third round of the crown game a little bit actually made our important characters seem cooler, so I like those changes. Episode 5 was really, really incredible too, except for the random gold Black March stuff. If you don't know, if you're an anime only, the Black March wasn't in Crown Game at all. Like, the spirit of Black March wasn't in Crown Game at all. And when Warian's eye was cut by the Shinsu, it was just this really small thing of the Shinsu, like, rearing up and protecting Bomb. It was really cool, and they just went way over the top with all this giant golden Shinsu stuff, and that's some of the things. I like the way that Shinsu looked watery and the way it was animated for the most part, but I do think that sometimes they tried to make it too big, and that actually took away from it a little bit. So I actually think that that's the one part in episode 5 I don't like, is the gold Black March nonsense and the freezing time stuff, which was super weird. But except for that, episode 5 was great. Episode 6 was really, really good too, especially the ending with our first glimpses at Anok's backstory. Episode 7 is one of the best episodes because we get the fully fleshed out backstory, more stuff about the princesses of Zahard, and we get a lot of how do I describe it? Slice of life-ish type stuff. A lot of stuff where it's just the characters hanging out, interacting with each other. And I love that kind of stuff. I feel like that kind of stuff does so much for building up who the characters are. So yeah, episode 7, my opinion, one of the best ones, period. Episode 8, I think, is also one of the most well adapted. That was the first round with Kun and Shibisu's team doing the hide-and-seek test. I really, really liked this one. I thought it was neat. I mean, there were some changes, but it was nearly identically adapted to what was in the manhwa, and it was just generally really good. They really captured the important bits for all of these characters. Now, episode 9 is another one that was great. I think it's one of the best episodes, but it's also one of the ones that wasn't adapted very much like the manhwa. Now, it was a very, very different episode to the way the manhwa presented things, but it was still very good. I thought the music was great, the fighting was great, so it was a really, really great episode, just not as good, not as special as the manhwa, which is kind of what you can say about the anime. It was good, just not as good as the manhwa. Episode 10, I really, really liked episode 10 a lot, until the random dead D Concho BS and the failing of Hong Chunhwa just took the wind out of my sails. I was loving the episode until that point, and then once we got to that point, I actually think I quit the episode for a while and had to come back and finish it later. Like, that was such a pointless and dumb and just unnecessary change that really doesn't help the series. Episode 11 was incredible and really, really tense. I think, again, it might have been the best episode. Episode 11 was really, 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 really good. I can't remember if this was episode 11 or episode 12, but if it was episode 11, one criticism I have is the weird hand glowy stuff with Rachel and Bomb. Actually, it isn't really bad because it shows that Bomb could see this, but Rachel couldn't when we get to episode 13, which was a really cool thing. But I don't know, at the moment it just seemed weird to me. Episode 12 was also really, really good, just not as satisfying and artistic as the manhwa. I just remember, you get chills when you see Bomb and Rachel on that little platform with the mouth opening up and the light shining in from above them. It's just so good and so, I don't know, again, artistic with the fish swimming around them and everything. Everything just looks so beautiful, and I just think that the anime just didn't look as good. And on top of that, again, the way the story was paced out wasn't as satisfying, and I think another big reason for that is trying to make things too big. They tried to make the Bull versus Bomb fight this epic thing where he gets swallowed again and shoots these Shinsu lasers and everything. Whereas in the manhwa, he was just trying to form a bang, just trying to hit it. And he had to try again and again as the Bull's ramming into him and he's getting injured. And then finally he's able to take a shot, shoot it through the head, really, through its mouth, before it could bite into the bubble and kill them. Which makes a lot more sense than the weird, it can like kind of grab into the bubble and hurt him, but it doesn't pop the bubble or anything. The weirdness of what the anime did. So again, episode 12, really, really, really good, just not as good as the manhwa. And see, the first, 7 episodes or so, my praise was super high, except for a few small things, but it's really episode 8 onward where I'm like, it's still good, but it is just not as good as the source material. And then finally, episode 13, I think, is the only episode that I would say I legitimately didn't like. And no, it's not just because it's all about Rachel. I actually think, well, I'll get to my biggest praise of the series at the end. But yeah, it's the only episode I didn't like, and it's because some of the changes just were not good. I didn't like the changes to what happens at the end with Leroro and Quant. But also, I feel like the change to have Kun making these snide remarks at Rachel makes Kun seem dumb. If Kun thought that Rachel had betrayed them, wouldn't the smart, sneaky thing to do be to trick Rachel into making her think that you didn't suspect her? Why would you let her know that you suspected her? That would be a really dumb move, so it makes Kunaguro Agnes seem dumb. So I don't like that change at all, plus it hurts some of the really good stuff in season 2 with you as a fan not knowing if he suspects her or not, which makes the reveal of him suspecting that she maybe had something to do with what happened to Bomb so much more impressive and impactful, and the anime takes away from that here. Another big problem with episode 13, Daddy Kancho being immortal. So we saw him get seemingly killed by the Bull, and then he was just standing around totally fine, not hurt whatsoever in episode 13. So yeah, again, this would be one of those two things I mentioned, that if I was an anime only, I would still absolutely complain about this. It seemed like such an oversight. Either you're gonna kill him off or you're not, but there was no explanation for it. No, oh yeah, he survived, or he was only injured, or just nothing. He was just standing there perfectly fine, and didn't really get any lines or anything, which makes the Chunhwa thing terrible. Because I was like, okay, if you're gonna write Chunhwa out of the story, I don't support it to have Dede Kancho in here. But maybe you could justify it by saying, we wrote Chunhwa out of the story so that we would have Dede Kancho and we would have Blarouge to be killed by the Bull, to make the Bull seem more special, which really added to the impact of episode 11. But even then, I'd be like, you could have kept Chunhwa alive and just killed off Blarouge, because we don't see Blarouge at all. We know they're supposedly with Dede Kancho, but we don't see them at all during the final exam. You could have had them get killed by the Bull. But instead, you have them not shown at all. You have Dede Kancho seemingly killed by the Bull, but then is still alive. So it makes the whole change of taking Chunhwa out of the story completely meaningless. There was no reason for it if Dede Kancho is just randomly perfectly fine now. So it was like they made this bad change, then they gave me some reason in episode 11, and I was like, well maybe I don't really like the change, but maybe they've justified it a little bit, and then episode 13 they throw all that down the drain. Also, they left out a bunch of important content from episode 13, I think, and especially the ending scene, the very last scene with Bam and Hwaryun, is just a bit of an awkward tragedy compared to the manhwa. In the manhwa, the pain that Bam is going through is so well done, and Hwaryun's lines to him are so good. And then in episode 13 of the anime, the final scene, it's really wordy and awkward, and Bam's like, no, my answers don't exist at the top of the tower, but I'm gonna climb to the top of the tower anyway. Where like, he doesn't make it clear that he's like, why did Rachel betray me? I need to go get answers. That kind of thing. So, yeah, the final scene was a mess. I think episode 13, again, is the only episode that I would say that I legitimately did not like. Also, some of the stuff with Rachel and Warrion, again, I feel like they left some things out that shouldn't have been left out, that were too important to leave out. And some of, again, the most iconic lines to me, with Warrion being like, actually two of the things. Warrion being like, so, how does it feel to become the heroine of the story? And also Rachel's line of being afraid of the night. Like, they left out a lot of really, really key things to the series. So, now that I've done my criticisms, done my praises, I'm going to end this video with my biggest praise of the anime. And my biggest praise of this anime is the presentation of Rachel as a character. Rachel as a character was done so well in the anime. Because one thing I feel like fans don't appreciate that much a lot of the time, or don't really get about Rachel's character enough, Rachel isn't some evil mastermind. She isn't some evil genius who plans all this out because she's just evil and wants to screw people over. She's a weak person. And when I say a weak person, I don't mean like in the shonen anime power sense. She's a weak person like inside, in her heart. We see it from the very beginning when she's offered the same test that Bomb is. Rather than trying, she instead says, no, I can't succeed, so you need to offer me some sort of deal. And then she gets the deal to go and stop Bomb. So she isn't a character who's evil, planning this all along. She's a character who says, I want to go after my dream. And instead of taking chances, instead of working hard, instead of trying to go up the tower with people, she says, well, I gotta screw these people over. I guess I have to do this to have my dream come true. I guess I have to do this to get my dream to come true. And she feels bad about it, though she tries to convince herself not to. She tries to make herself not feel bad about it. But in the end, she's just selfish and weak, and she doesn't try to climb with other people. She doesn't try to take these risks that Bomb does, where Bomb's like, I need to find Rachel, I'm going to run in there. I'm not going to, or like what he says to Andrasi, I'm not going to climb over people in order to climb the tower. I'm going to go up together with people. And then Rachel does the opposite. She's like, I have this dream, and she convinces herself, well, I can't do it that way. I can't take these chances like he did, risking his life. I can't go up with everyone. I need to step over people in order to go up. She does these things because she's weak and cowardly, not because she's some evil mastermind. And I think that the last episode especially, but the anime in general, did such a good job of that, showing that she feels guilty. She feels nervous about it. She doesn't want to chase her dream this way, but she justifies herself by saying, oh, this is what I need to do to chase my dream. And so yeah, I think that's the best part of the anime, is how Rachel is presented, is how good of a job they did at showing her character as somebody who is despicable, not in an on purpose, just plain evil way, but despicable in that they are just going to screw everyone over in order to get what they want, and they're going to try their best to convince themselves that they had to do it that way. I love that. So yeah, that's my favorite thing about the anime, is how well they presented Rachel's character. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, my rundown, the things I liked, the things I didn't like. Like I said, I'll be doing a detailed review on every episode. This turned out like twice as long as I was hoping it would be. But I just wanted to give you my general thoughts, because I know people would have wanted my general thoughts. Like I said, I know on the first couple of reviews people would be like, well, what do you think about this later on, or what do you think about this in general? So I figured, you know what, let me just give people what they're going to be asking for anyway. Let me just put this out first, and then I'll go back through and review every episode in detail. But yeah, that's it. thank you for watching the video. Like if you did like the video, comment down there, tell me what your thoughts are on the anime. Again, I feel like I'm gonna get a bunch of those comments that are like what I say at the beginning, acting like the Tower of God anime killed their dog or their parents, like it's just this really extremely horrible thing, when in reality there were definitely some real bad things, some real good things. Overall, I'd maybe give it like a 6 or a 7 out of 10. Like I said, it was an above average anime. I'd even say good in a lot of ways. But it definitely certainly had its problems, and it just didn't live up to the source material. But yeah, comment to tell me what you thought of it and what you thought of my thoughts of it. Subscribe for more Tower of God, much more on the channel. Follow on Twitter if you want. If you want a link to the Discord server asking, I'll give you one. And if you'd like to support the channel on Patreon to help me to keep making videos on Tower of God and everything else, it's patreon.com/Haku of the Tubes, or a link will be in the description. But either way, that's it. Thank you for watching. Yeah, again, and I'll see you all next time.